Hi, and welcome to Prism Behavior, where we look at behavior through a different light. My name is Heather, and I am the founder of Prism, and I'm really excited to share this video with you today. Even if you are Parent of the Year, and I know that I'm not, no matter what you do, sometimes your kids misbehave. So, what is the best way to respond? Timeouts are one of the most common punishment strategies out there, but it is also one of the most misunderstood. When it is used incorrectly, unfortunately, it can actually make your child's problematic behavior increase rather than decrease. So that's why we're going to talk about it today. So, does that mean that you shouldn't use timeouts? No. As a behavior analyst and mother of two, I have good news for you. Timeouts can be very effective at reducing problematic behavior. The first thing you need to keep in mind when using timeout is to minimize attention provided during a timeout. So, for example, when using a timeout, first you should provide a simple rule reminder that is not longer than a sentence or two. It's better to state what your child should do rather than what he or she should not do. The rule reminder should be given once in a neutral tone of voice and with a neutral expression. You need to share your toys, for example. After it is given, I recommend not providing eye contact, as this can actually serve as attention. Physical prompts to ensure your child stays on timeout are allowed, but the physical prompts should not be accompanied by talking or additional eye contact. I know that may seem a little bit weird, but eye contact and talking to your child in this circumstance can actually encourage them to act out during timeout. If your child does display inappropriate behavior during the timeout, what you should do is ignore the behavior if possible and do not start the timeout over. There's actually research to suggest that it is not necessary to start the timeout over, even if your child displays inappropriate behavior during the timeout. Also, if a timeout is actually started over several times over and over again, it will become unnecessarily long. And with timeouts, longer is not necessarily better in terms of, how long it is. So I suggest only doing timeout for about 1 minute per year of age. The next thing to keep in mind is that timeout is not necessarily a chair or a specific place. Although timeout can involve sitting on a chair for a period of time, it does not have to. Instead of bringing your child to timeout, you can actually bring timeout to your child by temporarily removing any preferred items from his or her reach. This works really well with the young kiddos, especially. So, for example, if your child hits another child while playing with his toys or her toys, you may want to take away the toys that they're playing with for a few minutes. That would actually be a timeout. Okay, moving on to the next point, and this one is really important. Timeouts only work if the current environment is enjoyable. So, what do I mean by this? In order to fully understand, it's important to understand what a timeout actually is from a scientific perspective. Timeout is a brief period of time spent in an environment that is less enjoyable than the current environment. So, if your child is in an environment that she doesn't enjoy, what you think of as a timeout may actually be a reward. Let's think about this for a second. Say your child is doing homework, and let's safely assume that she doesn't like to do homework, and she begins to loudly complain and protest about doing it. So then you decide to put her on a time out, thinking that it will serve as punishment for her. What if sitting in her room on timeout is more enjoyable than doing homework? Then, the next time she's doing homework, do you think that she is more or less likely to complain or protest? More. So instead of being actually a punishment, you've actually created a reward for her for the behavior, the problematic behavior that you don't want to see happen. The lesson is to only give timeouts in situations where you know your child isn't trying to escape or avoid a non preferred situation. On the flip side, an example of a good time to give a timeout, and I'm not going to lie, it's from my own experience, is when siblings are fighting in the car on a road trip while playing on their tablets. The timeout might look like this, taking their tablets away for a few minutes. Okay, last thing. Make sure you are also using rewards and not just punishment and things like timeout. Honestly, as a parent, I know it can be easy to overuse punishment strategies like timeout. This is not a fun place to constantly be, though. Your kids get upset, you get upset, and though is necessary and it does work and it has its place, it really should be used much less frequently than rewards. Going back to the example above, ask yourself, what are you doing to reward the behavior you want to see? Earlier this year with my own kids and thinking about homework and complaining, each day my son would be doing his homework. And I was going nuts because sometimes, I have to admit, I don't always take my own advice very well. Anyways, I started a quarter system, a reward system where my son could earn quarters for completing his homework without complaining. That was all it took. We went from, having to try to use any sort of punishment strategy so that he would complete his homework. But then by using a reward system instead, homework just became a much more pleasant experience. So don't forget that. It's easy to overuse punishment, but really you should be using rewards more often. Closing us out, punishing your kiddos is not fun, but sometimes it is necessary. For those of you who choose to use timeouts, I hope this video is helpful for you. Make sure to subscribe so that you can be the first to hear about more free resources like this one. Goodbye.